It is with real excitement and pleasure to be introducing two spectacular chefs at the 2016 Gaithersburg Book Festival. Chefs Eric Ripert and Brian Voltaggio. Acclaimed chef Eric Ripert, generally considered the preeminent seafood chef in the world, chef and co-owner of New York City's best restaurant, the 3 Michelin-starred Le Bernardin, co-owner of Aldo Somme Wine Bar, chef of Blue at the Ritz-Carlton Grand Cayman, vice chairman of the board of City Harvest, and a French Legion of Honor Award winner, no less. He has authored his 6th book. This is his 6th book. It's an autobiography entitled 32 Yolks, From My Mother's Table to Working the Line. Chef Ripert will be joined in conversation by none other than our own Chef Brian Voltaggio, who hails from Maryland. Chef Voltaggio, owner of Volt in Frederick, and an expanding group of stellar restaurant properties, including Matchbox, Agio, Family Meal, Range, and others, and the next being a much anticipated steakhouse in the MGM Resort at the National Harbor with his brother Michael. Chef Voltaggio, who credits esteemed chef Charlie Palmer as his mentor, burst onto the national stage himself as the runner-up and finalist on the 6th season of the Food Network series Top Chef, and again the runner-up finalist on the 5th season of Top Chef Masters. He is the only chef to have competed on both shows, and has earned a dramatic rise among the country's best and brightest chefs and restaurateurs. This day, Chef Voltaggio is all over, or these days, is all over the Food Network, as is Chef Ripert. Prepare. Sorry, Murray. I got to read it. I'm too excited. Among Chef Ripert's television credits includes a gig as the Emmy Award-winning host of Avec Eric, and perhaps notably, he's a regular guest on Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations and Parts Unknown, and a frequent judge on Top Chef. This should truly be a very interesting event in that these two elite chefs represent the best of the traditional and the new paths towards the pinnacle of success and excellence in the culinary field. Pre-Food Network, Chef Ripert's rise came along following the more expected path and walking in the footsteps of mentors the likes of Joel Robuchon and Jean-Louis Paladin, both world-changing chefs themselves, and eventually, fairly quickly actually, choosing his own voice and style, achieving worldwide recognition for his refined executions and zen-like grace in his culinary presentations and kitchen leadership. Personally, I consider my dinner at Le Bernardin to be the one singularly perfect dining experience of my life. I confess to being a true fan and a very appreciative fellow chef for all that Chef Ripert has brought to this industry and the world. I have read everything he's ever published, and his dedication towards his profession has been an inspiration to me for many, many years. I greatly enjoyed the read. 32 Yolks shares a lot of personal anecdotes about Eric as a young man, intrigued by his mother's passion for cooking, and before his decision to become a professional chef. Also, the vivid descriptions of the early years as a young, inexperienced cook really hit home with me. I can say I have been there with co-workers and sous chefs kicking my shins, trying their best to break me, yet having one guy in the kitchen urging me on to withstand the abuse and learn to move past it, and those who are challenging me. Thank you for reminding me about those days, those trials many of us faced back in the day. To the young and who are at the beginning of their careers in the kitchen, believe me, it's different now. It's really different. Thanks in large part, I'm convinced, to the manner in which chefs such as Eric Ripert have chosen to lead their brigades. And 32 Yolks is really good at capturing the feel of this time of personal growth and coming of age within our chosen industry. Chef Ripert, we have all had our 32 Yolks moment. I scalded a Mornay sauce, and it's still vivid in my memory 25 years later. Yeah. A word about Chef Voltaggio, who's also an author, having written Home and Volt Inc. My dinner at Volt the other day, we were just talking about it, with a menu bursting with both local and world cuisine touches, illustrated a remarkable grasp of presentation, balance, texture, and if I may, a refined creative freedom. Over 10 courses or so, Chef Voltaggio easily demonstrated the best of modern culinary execution and product integration that I have enjoyed anywhere. The imaginative and yet still functional combinations were occasionally mind-blowing, but most importantly, just delicious. I look forward to watching Chef Voltaggio as he continues his career and can't wait to see what's yet to come. These two chefs offer a striking counter, with Chef Ripert's ultimately refined presentations highlighting and bringing to the forefront the very essence of the world's finest seafoods plated, and the exciting, imaginative world-based dishes of Brian Voltaggio. Both still share the same unwavering commitment to the best of culinary classic technique and heritage, yet they present so differently. That's why we cook, and that's why we go out, and that's why we look at chefs such as these. With these two, we are witnessing a wild swing in our chosen profession, and I wonder if it might remind Chef Ripert of the years Robuchon was upending tradition and public expectations at Jamin. Let's be sure to ask, and for the rest of the story, you'll have to read the book. It's a great read. Go out and get it now. Thank you. And without further ado, chefs.
I feel bad you're the guest, chef. So, here we are.
And because it's raining, maybe you want to come a bit closer for the ones who are outside? No? You want to stay in the rain? Okay, I feel bad.
I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you so much for being here and braving the weather and coming to listen to us, and of course to come and buy my book.
Hey, if mine's for sale too, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. So for me, Chef, it's an honor to be speaking with you today, and for everybody here, it's great to see such a really great crowd to come out. This is a fantastic event every year. It's my second time here. But for me, it's an honor to be speaking and having conversation about you, about this very personal book. It's a really great book, and certainly, as a chef, there's a lot of things too that I truly can take from that book. As I feel that I've crossed similar paths, in my career along the way, and so what a great read. It's a lot of fun, very personal book. For me, as an up and coming culinarian and a chef, it was a great testament to what we do. And so it's an honor to be here to be speaking with you about this again. I have a list of questions because I felt it was important to come prepared because that's what we should do. But then too, I think along the way, if anybody has any questions, as we're having a conversation, please feel free to speak up and we'll make this a conversation for everyone, not just me. But I am anxious to get started because I do have a few that I do want to talk about. First and foremost, I guess let's get into the title of it, 32 Yolks, and where that came from and what that means. I think it's really important that we get a first introduction into where that came from.
Sure. 32 Yolks is a defining moment in my career. I graduated from culinary school with honors, and I thought I was a good cook, because in school I was doing well and graduation went fine, and I was very proud. I wrote to the 18 three-star Michelin that existed at the time in France, and only one answer to me was La Tour d'Argent, specialized in ducks. The restaurant in 1982 was 400 years old, an institution. I was 17 years old. I received a letter from La Tour d'Argent saying, we have a job, call us. It's a Friday. Actually, I went to forage for mushroom. I come back. I see the letter, I call them, and they say, you're starting on Monday. Monday, I am in Paris with my luggage. I go to La Tour d'Argent, and it's my first professional kitchen in a 3-star Michelin, which is the highest ranking in France. The chef says, cut some shallots, I'm going to change, I come back. Of course, I cut myself, and I go ask for a Band-Aid, and he's looking at me already like suspiciously. Then he's asking me to go get the Chervil, and I'm asking him, what is Chervil? So he's looking at me like, okay, who are you, kid? And then he said, make me an Hollandaise. And I knew Hollandaise. I have done it in culinary school with 2 yolks, 3 yolks. And I said, yeah, sure, how many yolks? 32. I'm like, okay. So it takes me forever, of course, to separate the yolks, which annoys him already. Then the stove, which was made of cast iron, was red. It was so hot. like I couldn't go close to the stove. So I was questioning I didn't know if he was joking or not. I was supposed to go close to that stove? And then I was built like a string bean. I was very skinny and tall, and you're supposed to whisk the yolks to make a sabayon, which is basically like light like a cloud, right? And I couldn't whisk the yolks fast enough. And instead of having this beautiful light sabayon, we ended up with some pitiful scrambled eggs. and I thought I was fired. They kept me, and it took me weeks to master the 32 yolks, maybe months. But when I mastered the 32 yolks, I was becoming a real cook, a real chef in that kitchen. Before, I was a very naive student from culinary school who thought graduation was the ultimate, and it was the passport to go and start in real life.
Well, thank you. And this talk is about Eric and his book, but I too, as a young culinary student, when I was at Culinary Institute of America, wrote to a famous 4-star Michelin restaurant for an externship. Didn't quite get in there, but that's okay. I ended up in New York City anyway, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Well,
and at least the yolks became a great family meal. Yes, chef. Well, thank you for that. And in that short window into the start of your career, we've all had that. I cut myself on my first day. I mean, I think it's just synonymous with chefs as they start, because you're nervous when you get into that kitchen, and there's all of that pressure and all of that stuff. But so obviously there's a lot of content. I mean, there's a lot of stories in your life, a lot of things you came through. Obviously, it inspired you to write that memoir. But what was the turning point? What made you decide it was time to do it?
So Random House approached me 8 years ago to write this memoir, and I thought they were joking, seriously. And it was a retreat in Aspen, and the boss of Random House said, "We would like to do your memoir." At the time, I was 43 years old, and I was like, "What kind of memoir do I have?" I mean, it took them 2 years to convince me, because I really believed I have no story to tell. But then thinking about it, I was like, yes, actually, I have some interesting stuff to say, some struggles and some triumphs and challenges, and some drama and so on. And therefore, I decided to do the memoir. And because I am a little bit slow, it took me 7 years to write it, a bit less, 6 years, with Veronica Chambers, who's a co-writer with me. And the idea of this memoir was not to just talk about myself, because that would not be meaningful. It was basically to leave an inspirational legacy for people in my industry, of course, but at many other levels. I come from parents who divorced when I was 5, and sometimes divorce is a great thing for the children and the couple. Sometimes it's a bad thing. In my case, it was a very bad thing, because I ended up with a very abusive and bully stepfather, and it changed my life, of course. From the golden years, I ended up in a nightmare for a long time. So it could be an inspiration for that. It could be an inspiration for many people who come into the professional world, not only in our industry, but who have their degree in hand. And I know that right now is graduation season. And as you all know, with experience, when you have your graduation paper, you're a beginner. It's not the end of the road, it's the beginning of the road. So I wanted to be inspirational at this level.
No, and you touched on something I was going to ask about too, was about your childhood. I mean, my family, we also, our family went through a divorce too when we were young. I almost feel like that there's a lot of people who are in the kitchen professionally. Sometimes their childhood, our childhood was great, but obviously when a family splits, it changes you. And personally, we found I think both my brother and I, we found refuge sometimes in the kitchen as family. And I don't know if you've experienced that. I know you talk a little bit about that in the book, but did you when she went to culinary school, did you find almost a second family in the kitchen? I believe that we spend a lot of time together. I don't know if you believe that that's in your philosophies or not, but I'm just curious if that's something you experienced.
Well, of course, in culinary school, but previously to that, I was very lucky. I had two grandmothers, one from Italy and one from Provence, who were cooking for me soul food because they knew I had a passion for good food. It was actually an obsession. I was a glutton. From age 4 to, all my life I have been eating. Now I'm okay. But when I was a child, I was really in trance when I was going into a kitchen, and I was loving being around my grandmothers, my aunts cooking, my mother will cook very refined food, inspired from Nouvelle Cuisine, from the chefs like Paul Bocuse and chefs of that generation in France. My mother was a very successful businesswoman. She was in the fashion industry. However, she would wake up at 5 a.m. to not only prepare breakfast, like you wouldn't believe, but also to create a lunch experience and a dinner experience with different tablecloth, different china pattern in between the lunch and the dinner, crystal glasses. At night we will have candles on the table, different flowers between lunch and dinner, and so on. And I thought every kid lives like me, right? I was like, yeah, this is normal life. But I love hanging in the kitchens and being around my mother, my grandmothers, and whoever was feeding me. I remember every day I would eat an entire apple tart. With, the size was like that. So it was for me very comforting to be in a kitchen, for sure.
So this evening when I come over for dinner, the tablecloth will be different than what we had for lunch? Is that what you're telling me? That's amazing. It's amazing.
Kind of simplified.
So I know your first mentor was Jacques, who was quite a character.
Yes.
Tell me about him and first, why your mother introduced you to him. I think that's very interesting. So
my father died when I was 11 years old, and I was very sad, obviously. And my mother said one day she said, I'm going to take you to a restaurant and just us. We're going to go see Jacques. Jacques was a legend in a country called Andorra, which is very tiny in between France and Spain. And he was a character. He was a retired legionnaire from the French Legion. His last battle was in Vietnam before the French were kicked out and the Americans came. And he had 20 covers to cook for every night. His wife was in the dining room, and he was kind of feared by the people in the country, because he would have no problem to say, get out of my restaurant. I don't want to. You will ask for salt. That was it. you were done. And then sometimes some strangers will come, and he will be like, "Oh yes, sure, come in," and be very warm and so on. So he was very eccentric in a sense. Ultimately, he was playing a game and he was having fun. But he allowed me to go in his kitchen. I was 9 years old, and he fed me so much chocolate mousse and tarte tatin and baba au rhum. And I don't know if the rhum had an effect on me or not, but he basically adopted me. And every day after school, instead of studying, actually I will go to his kitchen and watch Jacques preparing the meal and be so happy. And it inspired me again so much. Now, the consequences of that is, instead of studying, I was watching Jacques. Therefore, at age 15, I was such a bad student, I ended up in a principal office with mom, and it was the end of the road for me. They said, you can't go to school any longer. You're too bad. So I was delighted, because it was, for me, a moment where I could choose to go to culinary school. And I went to culinary school, of course.
That's awesome. That's really great. And you know, when you were talking earlier about your mom kind of taking a step back and the elaborate meals that you had, which would sound amazing. And you know, my mom always made sure we had dinner on the table, but we certainly didn't have flour changes and everything else. That's unreal. But do you try to carry? I mean, I'm a father of 3. I'm a chef. You have a son. Do you try to carry some of these traditions that you've taken from your mother and try to pass them down? Are you creating your own? What are some things that you do?
So I'm happily married, of course, and I have a son, he's 12 and a half. But my wife didn't grow up like that, and when I met her, she was eating on plastic plates, and I was like, that's shocking to me. There was a cultural difference that we
met similar people, it seems.
We manage. But when my son was young, to teach him interest in the culture of eating and cooking, what I was doing with him, we were opening a restaurant on Sunday night in my house for the family, just for us. And he was the maître d', and I was the chef. And we are not feminists, but Mom was the dishwasher. And as a maître d', he was in charge of choosing which restaurant we were opening. Was it French, Italian, Chinese, Spanish? So he will choose the theme, decide with me the menu, and then he will write the menus and do the drawings and so on. And I will cook, obviously, appetizer, main course, cheese, dessert. And although the desserts are lousy with me, but nobody complained. And then he will be in charge of setting up the table. In charge also of bringing the food to the table and clearing the table. And that was a Sunday tradition that now we have stopped a little bit because he's less into it.
Yeah.
But he expects appetizer, main course, dessert on a nice tablecloth and so on.
Maybe you could switch roles though too at this age. You know, you could be the maitre d' now, and he could be the chef.
That's a problem with him. He wants to be the chef, but he just wants to eat. He doesn't want to cook.
All right. Well, I have other questions, but I have to ask: what was the hardest theme that he ever gave you? What was the hardest restaurant concept he ever threw at you? Do you know?
Yes. We had a nanny who was from the Philippines, and
wow.
he wanted to have a Filipino meal.
That's awesome.
It's not easy. I mean, thank God we have Google.
That helps. You're over in the corner looking up recipes.
So I made adobo, of course.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So are there any dishes that transport you back to specific moments of your childhood, things that you even carry through onto your menus today that you could connect to a time and place when you were a child?
The food that I really loved when I was young doesn't necessarily make it directly to the restaurant, but the influence is there. But if you give me a steak au poivre with green peppercorn sauce, I'm back into my early teens. Chocolate mousse, I'm definitely back. My mother was very influenced also by Vietnamese culture. We had a lot of friends from Vietnam because they were refugees, and they were in the south of France. The weather was kind of friendly for them to adapt. And I was eating a lot of Vietnamese food. And each time I see something Vietnamese, I'm back home with Mom in that kitchen.
That's awesome. So your training as a chef seems like a lot of chefs, especially in your generation, even my generation. Well, we're the same generation, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Sorry, I've recovered well on that one, by the way. I've always wanted to work for this gentleman, so I'm a couple of years behind.
I could be your father, you know that.
No. So now I'm nervous. So so you've had long hours. You know, obviously you work for some pretty incredible people that are also very difficult and hard to work for. I understand this. I've been in these situations before. Physical injury, things like that. I don't know if I ever got beat up, but you know. But what inspired you to keep moving forward? I mean, this question is very even personal to me because I've been through some of these things. You know, and obviously the kitchen environment has changed now. But looking back, what kept you moving? It's tough to fight that fight every day.
Yes. Well, it was common practice when I grew up in the 80s, in the 90s, to have violence in the kitchen, to have obviously screamers, verbal abuse, physical abuse in the sense that you were kicked in the butt and punched in the shoulders. It was the chefs were throwing plates and throwing pans and so on, and that was accepted by my industry, and we grew up like that and thinking that it was normal. Our industry was leaving the Middle Age, and when you think about it, I mean, we fly planes, we went to the moon, I don't think is anyone having tantrums like in those offices or technicians having those tantrums that the chefs had at the time in their kitchen. My first chef, when I was in training from culinary school, after 2 minutes, took a stock of platters, very long platters, and knocked the maître d' on the head, and he fell on the floor, and that was my first minute with him. And that chef was very scary. He was about 300 pounds, and he was running pretty fast for 300 pounds, I have to say. And then when I worked in Paris in some in 3-star Michelin, we were scared. I mean, some of us were shaking, and it's not good. I don't believe a cook who's shaking and scared will cook better than a cook who's inspired and happy to cook for the clients. And since those years, I have been fighting with myself first, because when I came to the US, I was emulating those chefs. I have a bad temper that I tamed over the years, 99% of it. But when I came to America, I was a screamer. I was throwing plates. I lost most of the team. The waiters didn't want to work with me. The cooks, the good cooks, were gone long time. I was extremely unhappy in my life, and I didn't know why. And I took a moment to sit down one day and think and say, why am I so unhappy? Well, you cannot mix anger and happiness. It doesn't work. Your brain doesn't put them together. And nobody's angry, and nobody's happy to be angry. It's a fact. So I learned that right away for myself, and I decided to change the philosophy of the kitchen. And I said, it's going to be no more screaming in this kitchen. And of course, I mean, we are challenged at times with stress, and one of the sous chefs may have the tendency to panic and maybe scream. But being angry, it's a weakness. It's not a quality. Managing a kitchen with anger, it's being a weak chef, a weak professional. Therefore, if it happens, the sous chef, or if even myself, it almost never happened in those days, and I'm very proud of that. But if it happens, we go on the front of all the team, we apologize for losing it. That's what we have accomplished at Le Bernardin.
That's great. No, and obviously this is sticking to the subject, but kind of going off. And we're seeing that more and more kitchens now have changed their ways as time has evolved. I mean, even mine personally. I mean, same way. Of course, being screamed at, you do as you become in charge of a kitchen. Try to emulate some of those characteristics, as you said, you've been working in the past. Do you find that your kitchen is that much more efficient, or as efficient as it used to be back when you were a student, when you were an apprentice? Do you feel like the brigade system is still as strong as it ever was? Do you feel like that you still get the best out of your team now, in a difference of the climate of the kitchen?
Well, when you get kicked in the butt, you learn immediately. It's an immediate reaction, right? But on the long term, it's not a good thing.
No.
And inspiring takes a longer time. It's a bigger, if I may, investment, right? But on long term, you have real benefits to create people who really have the passion and who didn't get that that is not necessary, obviously. So in our team, we have a lot of cooks. At Le Bernardin, we have 50 cooks, not working at the same time, but it's our team. And we could manage Le Bernardin with maybe 35 cooks, but therefore, we will put the team under stress. And maybe it will be some abuse and so on. So it's a big investment to be able to create a safe environment, a pleasant environment. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it makes sense. And our brigade is very efficient. The cooks come to work and they seem to be happy. They don't look scared. And we keep the staff also. That is a big benefit. Our team stays with us for a long time. Obviously, after a few years, we ask them to go and see other chefs to learn their style. It's a tradition in our industry. You don't keep employees for life. And anyway, everybody's free to leave or to stay. But they stay through the program. They want to learn from the strict basics up to management, which means sous chefs.
So one thing I learned when I was reading the book was now that you're a devout Buddhist and that you started reading the teachings as you're coming over to America as your first stop, which this is a shared question though too, which I thought was really funny. You put down the Playboy magazine, instead you picked up the book on Buddhism and became a student of this. And that's a hard decision to make between Playboy and picking up a book on Buddhism. So I was just curious, how did you make that choice? And certainly I would assume, and I've certainly learned that, you know, your studies and teachings has helped transform the way that you work in the kitchen.
Sure.
Which I thought was very interesting.
So the memoir is from age 3.5, 4 years old, and I have vivid memories of those times. And it ends at the gate in Paris, at the airport. I'm about to enter the plane to come to America, and that's the end of the memoir. But just before the gate, I stopped at the bookstore or the whatever store with the magazines, and I had enough money to buy Playboy. And I knew it would be my last French Playboy, and I was buying it for the interviews, of course. And then I saw a book on Tibet, and it was the same price. It was, I don't know why, it was discounted, and I was very curious about it. However, I ended up on the front of the cashier with my Playboy, no matter what. And then I gave it to her, and then I said no. I took back the Playboy, and I went to get the book. And it was the beginning for me of a great interest into the Tibetan culture, and that led very quickly into Buddhism. And Buddhism has been a great change in my life. It's an amazing cultural change for me and spiritual change for sure. It made me a much better person. And I apply principles of Buddhism at work in my life. However, in a very secular way. I'm not trying to make everyone to becoming a Buddhist. I find ways to take the inspiration that I'm getting and to apply it in a restaurant or in life without pressuring anyone to follow the teachings, of course. But I have many teachers. When His Holiness the Dalai Lama is in town, in New York or in Washington, I come to do teachings and so on. And it made sense to me. I mean, everybody has found his way, right? I mean, for me, it's Buddhism.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And you know, this is one thing I wanted to ask. I mean, I know that you're here. I know you're trying to sell your book. You said that as you started, as every author
we are
is.
selling the
You're
book.
also probably trying to get on New York Times bestseller and all of those things, right? The critical acclaim is going to come. Your mother resides still in France. Has she read your book? Because I mean, to me, like I'm always nervous, and anytime I ever put something in front of my mother, so she's your biggest critic, I'm sure. So what does she think?
So I gave the book. She doesn't speak English too much, and the book is not translated yet. So I gave her the book.
So you'll get a thumbs up no matter what. So that's good.
But her feelings were a bit hurt on the beginning because it's some couple of moments that are difficult, and she said, "Why did you talk about it?" And I said, "Look, Mom, it's the past, and it's to be inspirational again. I mean, it's to make sure that some people don't make the same mistakes, and you love me unconditionally, and me too. So we have nothing to fear." And 2 days ago, she sent me a picture with a book in one hand and a kiss like that. So
that's it. That's a kiss of approval. It's
yes,
good.
I got it.
So that's amazing.
I'm good. Yes.
So obviously you talk a lot about your mentors in the book, and obviously you are now one of those. You are a mentor to many. Do you find yourself, just obviously have mentees that are below you and people who are you influence in your kitchen every day? I'm sure you have a roster of them now. How much has that impacted your life now? I mean, I'm sure as the roles change, your life changes too.
Well, it's good to be a mentor. I mean, it's a good position to be there. I love inspiring people, so I do that through books and through television, obviously, through my work in the kitchen, and I'm happy to teach the team, and the team is not only the kitchen. We have 150 employees. I'm happy to teach the team what I have learned. I'm happy to teach them, of course, the techniques of cooking and service and the passion and so on. But I'm very happy to teach them how to be good people, and I think that is very important. And team players, and to be humble and not to have an ego that blinds you and makes you deaf and you don't progress anymore. So being a mentor, I mean, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have the white hair and be younger and it would be fun. But I'm happy to be the one who's sharing the wisdom that I have accumulated over the years. And I'm sure in 20 years from now, hopefully I'll be here, maybe here actually, and I will have progress also and mentor people who are my age. I don't know, but it's something that is in my heart. I really wanna share good values. I wanna share good principles, and I wanna share my passion.
Well, certainly in the book that you shared a lot of that, and I know personally I'm going to take a lot out of it. As I am in this career with you too as well, and not only there's a lot of personal aspects to your life I can relate to. It's a fantastic read. It's an amazing book. There are things that you could do for the hair though too. They have the stuff that you could color it. So if you I've been considering it myself too. I'm starting to find it in the beard. So, but beyond all of that, it is an absolute pleasure to have spent some time with you.
Thank you very
discussing
much.
your book. Congratulations on this. I suggest everyone goes out and picks this up right away because and see
that's your wife.
Yeah, I know. No, that's the timer. I'm sticking to this schedule because I know it's busy. And but thank you. It was such a pleasure. If anybody else has any questions or anything they'd love to ask Eric. And Chef Ripert,
sure.
Please go ahead.
We'll use the mic, please. We're recording this. I actually just want to say thank you to both of you gentlemen. Our son graduated from the CIA a few years ago. He did his externship at Volt, and he is now a line cook at Le Bernardin.
Are you serious?
Oh, who is it?
That's amazing.
Trevor.
Oh, yes.
Trevor
yeah.
Smith.
Of course, yes.
So we were.
That's right. Trevor is at Le Bernardin. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. That's awesome.
So we were so excited.
He left your kitchen.
Did we do okay?
Yes,
he's good.
Okay, good. Wow.
But, inspirational stories from both of you. We've
Yeah,
read
good
a
to
lot
see you
about
again,
you,
sir.
and we'll be over to get a signature later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations to him.
So that's the only way I could get into your kitchen, Chef. I had to send somebody in there in my place.
Thank you, Chef. It was very good hearing you. I just have one question. I read this book called, pardon my pronunciation, Au Revoir to All That by Michael Stenberger. and I got a feel that he was lamenting the decline in French cuisine or so. So I just wanted to have your point of view. Like, do you think it has declined over the period of time, or where does it stand?
Well, French cuisine and fine dining is not declining. It's a very vibrant scene and world. But 30, 40 years ago, the French were kind of alone in fine dining. And then the world came together slowly but surely. And today, you cannot claim that you eat good food or great food only in French restaurants in the world, or in Paris or in France. I mean, you have talents like this gentleman here who are doing incredible work. You have so many great talented chefs in America and all over the world. You can go to Peru, you can go to Brazil, you can go to, of course, Japan and the usual suspects, in London, and you go to Australia and you eat fantastic food. Now, the French are part of that world. They haven't given up. In France, because the tradition is so strong and it's such an old tradition, they have a hard time to adapt to the fact that the world is changing and is becoming one very quickly. And it's a challenge for some of the chefs. But French cuisine is doing pretty well. Now, fine dining is doing extremely well, despite what the media were saying a few years ago. I was always puzzled to hear that fine dining was dying, and you couldn't get a table at Thomas Keller or Daniel or Jean-Georges or anyone who has a fine dining restaurant. At Le Bernardin, I was like, good luck if you try to get a table at 8. You have to wait for a month. Fine dining is very vibrant because people want to have an experience that is extremely unique and very different than anything else. People like to dress. Ladies go to stores, buy beautiful clothes, and you see all those stores. I mean, you see them, the Prada, and I'm not going to make a list of all the designers, but the Chanel and Yves Saint Laurent and all those designers, they're opening stores everywhere. And men go buy some Prada suits and Gucci suits and Tom Ford. Those suits are not for the office. It's too fancy. Those suits are to go out. So it's the proof that fine dining is doing very well and very vibrant.
Absolutely, I agree to all those points. Do you have a question, sir?
I just want to say, number one, thank you, Chef, for coming here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming here, and especially for the ones in the rain. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
And I have a question about the humane treatment of animals on farms. And
yes.
If your products come from farmers who humanely treat
yes.
the animals, and if you've heard of the farm in Spain where they have humanely treated geese.
Yes, so Le Bernardin is a seafood restaurant. Therefore, the most of the fish is wild. I mean, 99% of the fish is wild, and it's definitely some suffering when the fish is caught and dies for us, right? So that is a concern of mine. I don't know how we can find a way for the animals not to suffer as much. And then on our menu, we have a couple of items that are not seafood. We have a duck that comes from a farm and is humanly raised, which means that the duck had a good life that a duck's supposed to have, which is it's roaming in the fields and being happy. Of course, we nix him at the end, but it's ways also to do it. Today was a good article, I think it was in New York Times, about making sure that if we kill those animals and we don't make them suffer. So I'm of course sensitive to that issue, and even more, I want to make sure that we are serving species that are not on the verge of disappearance, especially for seafood. And sustainability is something that is key. I'm an advocate also of eating healthy. And if you have choice, if your budget allows you to eat eggs or drink milk from a cow that doesn't have pesticides, growing hormones, antibiotics, of course it's a good thing. And hopefully that trend that is starting, and we see that now with vegetables and animals and so on, serving organic, it's something that, and also supporting local farmers, it's something that we, when we can afford it, because again, a lot of people can't pay the extra price for that food, but if we can afford it, we should, because we're supporting basically ourselves. If you support a farmer, you won't have a building, he will cultivate the land, but if you don't support a farmer, he will sell his land, and soon you will have buildings around you, and so on.
I think if we keep asking for it, at some point things will level out too and reset and get to the point where it can become more affordable and more profitable also for the farmer too, as well. It becomes a circle of a financial stability. I think that hopefully it will happen soon. We have time for probably one or two more questions.
Hi. So I just want to thank you for coming definitely to down in DC. It's been great listening to you. And I guess my question is, I've always associated food with some kind of like memory. So I want to see from both of you actually like what your, I guess, most vivid food memory is.
Mine was eating at Le Bernardin. That was not only as a young culinary student, but then again as I was a professional chef not that many years ago, and it was the most amazing meal I've had in quite some time.
Thank you. I paid him to say that.
Yes. I got a signed copy.
You.
Go ahead.
I have a funny memory. I was young. I was 10 or 11, and one of my gifts was to go in a 2-star Michelin, and they had for dessert 4 carts filled with tarts and pies and cookies and everything else, and sorbets and ice creams, and they came to the table, and the captain or maître d' said, "You would like to choose?" I said, "Yes, I would like everything." So it was the first time in history of that restaurant that it happened, and they said we have to ask permission to the chef. So the chef came because he couldn't believe it, and they gave me everything. I ate everything. I was sick for 3 days.
I didn't quite go that way, that far, but I will tell you a small story. I was at Eric Frichon's of Bristol in Paris, and I was a young culinary student. I was over and I was doing a stage. I was going to Valence to work at Peak, and on my way, I had this afternoon. I was able to have lunch. And I was in there by myself. Didn't speak any French. There's one sommelier in there who spoke some English, and so she walked me through the menu. I almost had everything on the menu. When a lobster that came out in hay that he's done for so many years, I was like, I'll take one of those. I'll take the chicken and pig's bladder. And so basically, I had all these for 2 dishes for one. It was a pretty extraordinary lunch, and I think I blew every last dime I had before I got onto the TGV.
Yeah, it happens.
Okay, we can clearly talk for another hour or two. A couple of inspiring chefs and a great topic for all of us to enjoy. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Go buy some books.
Thank you. Absolutely.